Amarion. I'm fond of this kid now, but I wasn't the first time we met. I was at Amarion's middle school, where I just spent the last hour talking to him and a handful of his classmates. We're winding down, and I'm trying to get the boys back to class so I can leave for my next story assignment, when Amarion looks at me and says that being on TV is really cool, and that, no offense, but only old people read newspapers. Hang on. I'm a newspaper reporter, and that was an insult. But before I could say anything, one of his classmates jumped into my defense and, in true 7th grade fashion, countered that. Spider-Man worked at a newspaper, so what now? So, why was I at Amarion's middle school? I joined the Florida Times-Union last year as a reporter covering education and children's issues. As I dove into the education community, I started hearing about this school, Butler, everyone called it, at school board and community meetings and just general conversations. But being new and without any context or background knowledge, I had no idea what this Butler was like. It sounded on one hand as if it wasn't such a great school, but then I went to a school board meeting where I saw dozens of parents and their students professionally dressed and waving signs they'd made praising the school. But then I heard the way that people said, Butler. Butler. But my mind went back to the kids I saw in their blazers, and I wondered if they were talking about the same Butler. Because surely they weren't talking about those kids. Because the kids I saw shook my hand and called me ma'am. What I heard and what I saw didn't line up. What was going on at this school? I spent 4 months finding out. What I learned is that Butler is a school in the early stages of a transformation. For years, Eugene J Butler Middle School had been one of the worst in Duval County. It performed poorly on state assessments and had a bad reputation for violence and misbehavior. Many students lagged behind their peers in reading and in math, and parents didn't want their kids to go to school there. In many ways, it was a typical struggling urban school in Jacksonville or really anywhere. But district leadership saw that they could not keep failing these children. They deserved better. And so last year, they decided to shake things up. It was out with the old Eugene J Butler and in with the leadership schools, the Young Men's Leadership Academy and the Young Women's Leadership Academy. The boys and the girls no longer take classes together and each have their own set of classrooms, teachers, and principals. Grades are improving. Discipline problems are decreasing. The leadership curriculum is attracting parents to send their kids to Butler. The students are proud to wear their uniforms and say they go to Butler. And that's only the first year. But if you were to line up Butler's grades from the state for the last decade, it would not look like the report card of an honors student. It's nearly completely D's and F's. Many students start the year out already behind in reading and in math. An English teacher told me one of her 7th grade girls started the school year reading on a kindergarten level. She didn't have just 1 or 2 years of progress to make up. She had 7 years to make up. Oh, you've got to be tough to go to Butler. That's what one young woman, Tyler, told me people said to her face about her school. They considered it to be horrible and violent. In 2013-14, before the school changed, there were 994 student suspensions. And 994 is a lot, especially when you consider that only 580 students went to Butler then. Not only does that make parents wonder if their children will be safe at school, it makes them wonder if teachers are spending more time on instruction or on discipline. Even Amarion's grandma, Nancy, didn't want her grandson to go there at first. Nancy herself is a former Butler student who loved her time at the school. She ran track and even saw it undergo racial integration. But she told me, even though Amarion is a good kid who stays out of trouble, one who likes soccer and swimming, and says he gets his positive outlook in life from his pastor and cartoons, Nancy's still worried about him going to Butler because she didn't know what kind of impact the other kids may have on her grandson. This school had a reputation that preceded it. Last year, 993 students who were supposed to attend Butler chose another middle school instead. In a building designed to hold nearly 1,300 kids, only 471 actually went there. And for the kids who remained, many brought with them a tremendous number of social, economic, and family problems into the classroom every single day. Most of Butler's students live in poor families. They have unstable family situations at home, and many receive free or reduced lunch, about 3/4 of the students. Many families struggle to pay for the new prep school uniforms and their upkeep. And more children are growing up in single-parent homes than their peers across the county. It was at a slam poetry event in May that students shared some of the things they live and see and struggle with every day in their own pieces, in their own words. Michaela read, "The skin I'm in describes who I am. The bruises tell how tough I am. The scars tell what I've been through." Tiana recited, "I can still hear the screaming, the yelling, the fighting, the crying. Seeing her cry made me hate you more. Why do you not love us?" And my friend Amarion also shared a poem that he wrote. It was his first ever poem. He talked about his own tough start in life, including seeing his mother's murder and his dad not always being around. He said, "Headlines reading mother beat to death in front of 3-year-old. Dad in jail. Someone has to be the man of the house." These experiences described by the kids themselves are things that so many children in Jacksonville and across the U.S. can relate to. But they also couldn't be further from the upbringings of many Americans either. It makes me wonder, when we talk about horrible schools and bad kids, do we remember these challenges? Do we empathize? There's a concept in the social sciences that says how we see ourselves is influenced by how we think others see us. So if I'm 12 or 13 or 14, and adults tell me that I go to a horrible school, a ghetto school, a bad school, what does that do to my self-esteem? How do I see myself as not just a student, but a person? I don't think we know the impact of our words. But Hiram is adamant that he and his peers are going to make a change. He told me, "Some people are going to say negative stuff, like, oh, it ain't gonna change. It's still the same Butler from years ago." But he finished by saying this, "We're going to show them." The issues around Butler aren't simple, and they stem largely from systemic issues like poverty and a lack of access to employment. As one community leader said, the issues may be more complex and deeply rooted than some of us are even comfortable acknowledging. But the efforts are there, though. The school district, nonprofits, educators, families, and kids alike are buying in to make a change. They learned the old neighborhood schools model wasn't working. And so they decided to create a new school in an old building. To lead these new schools, the district sent in new campus leadership. Trip Moreland was tapped to lead the Young Men's Academy. Mr. Moreland's boys say their principal is like a father to them. They say he's tough, but fair, and that he cares about them. Mr. Moreland often calls his boys his sons, and his sons say that he's showing them how to be a man, respect women, and behave like a gentleman. Tamara Williams is the girls' principal. Miss Williams told me she has used this opportunity to be a role model for her girls. When we talked, she recalled breaking up a few almost fights in which she would take the girls involved to the school conference table, sit them down, and tell them, "Leaders talk things out." She said she was modeling communication skills for her girls because many of them don't know that you can talk something out and be done with it. And along with the leadership, the learning style changed. The boys in their dress slacks and their crisp white shirts go to school on the second floor. Their hallways have these neat lines down the center so that they change class in an organized fashion. Their halls are painted with college logos and murals of influential men. Their teachers emphasize structure and competition, and they say that when boys are learning and on task, they tend to be loud. But if you listen, they're usually talking about the lesson. Downstairs, the girls in their plaid skirts and their tall socks have their own school. Their halls are painted with murals of influential women and girls like Nobel Prize winner Malala Yousafzai and Olympic gold medalist Gabby Douglas. Girl-centered practices include teaching to the 5 senses, and teachers say that girls value relationships in the classroom. So a simple act like asking a girl how her day is going can make all the difference. The girls told me that they love their new classes. For the most part, there's one caveat. They say there's more drama now. But without the boys around, they said they feel more confident answering questions in class, and they aren't picked on so much. The schools expected more from their kids, and the kids delivered. Now, the results. Discipline issues have plummeted. Separating the genders has made all the difference in student behavior. Suspensions fell 72% from the previous year. Attendance numbers seem to indicate that students actually like going to their school. The Butler School's average attendance improved over the previous year and even surpassed the district average for all middle schools. When classroom outbursts are eliminated, more learning can take place. Substantial progress happened at the Butler schools last year, though student test scores and school grades may not yet show that. For example, only 14% of 8th grade students finished the school year reading on grade level, which is much lower than the 30% average across the county. But take into consideration that of those 8th grade students, 63% achieved at least 1 year of growth. Looks quite different. The same thing for math proficiency, with almost half of students achieving at least 1 year of growth. And do you remember the young woman who started 7th grade reading on a kindergarten level? She finished the school year reading like a 6th grader. On paper, it may not look like that young woman had succeeded, but who can honestly consider 6 years of progress in 1 year to be a failure? Her teacher, Allie Knoll, said that this is the key. All it is encouragement. If a kid believes in themselves, they'll work their butt off and they can accomplish any goal. Success also means making parents a part of the process. An outside group hired a parent organizer to put on classes to show parents how to get involved in the school. The principals put on events that aimed to get families in the door, and relatives began to show up at school for open mic night or even by the hundreds for 8th grade cotillion. Parents from across this county are now choosing to send their children to Butler, a school that was hemorrhaging students and was down to only 471 has grown to 520. The conversation around this school is changing. As Tyler said, it's less, oh, you've got to be tough to go to Butler, and more so that Butler has a new meaning, and a lot of people, like her, are benefiting from it. The school is learning the truth about what creates success, and we, as a community, are learning how to have a constructive conversation about that success. This is the new machine. So that means we can't toss around phrases like bad schools, bad kids, lazy teachers, and lazy parents. Because a dialogue like that doesn't do any good for anyone. The changes at Butler haven't happened overnight, just like it won't be one of the highest achieving schools in a year or two. But it's getting there. So what does all of this change mean? It means we must not be afraid to learn of bold changes, to take risks, and to pursue uphill battles. It means we must engage the whole community, all of us, in the conversation. We all must be a part of the dialogue. And as a reporter, that means I will bring you the information you need. I will help you learn and stay informed so you can be involved. But this does not mean that we have to blindly support a school district, though we must always advocate for its success. This isn't about a school board or a superintendent. This is about our children. And when our children succeed, we cut off the school-to-prison pipeline. They go into college and careers. They live more fulfilled lives. And if we can do it for the hundreds of kids in this one school, why can't we do it for the thousands in a district or the millions across this country? My goal in standing here before you is to amplify the voices of the people touched by Butler. In doing so, I hope I have challenged how you will talk about so-called bad schools. I want you to strike bad schools from your vocabulary. It's never that simple. Educate yourself on education. Reach out to someone in a school and listen. It's not until we can acknowledge that these problems exist and are reality for thousands of children every single day that we can really begin to move the conversation forward on the kinds of schools and futures we want for our children. Now, speaking of bright futures, let's go back to my friend Amarian. I still have no idea if I've convinced him that newspaper journalism is the coolest kind of journalism there is, but I have a hunch he's coming around. A month after we met, I'm back at Butler and I run into Amarian in the hall. He gives me the sideways, one-armed hug, which has become our customary greeting at this point, and we walk side by side up to the library where he's going to film his poem for us to go on the Times-Union's website. It's at this point that he tells me his grandma had been bragging about him lately. Why? Because he's going to be in the newspaper. Oh yes. Oh yes, the newspaper. This, he says, is a very big deal because it's his second time in less than 10 years. This was Amarian, the first time he was in our paper. But it gets even better. I tell him not only is he going to be in the newspaper, this video he's about to record of his poem is going on the internet too. And we all know, if it's on the internet, you're pretty much famous. I still remember the look on his face. His jaw dropped. He didn't say it, but I have a hunch that kind of fame may be even cooler than being on TV. Thank you.